Liberty Nation with Tim Donner.
Well, Joe Biden turned heads and even dropped some jaws this week in his first TV appearance since he took the oath of office. At a CNN town hall where he drew not even friendly fire from the transparently anti-Trump, pro-Biden hosts and organizers, he played right into every stereotype of himself in a rambling response to a question about a subject that's likely to haunt his presidency, China. Here to break down what we've learned, if anything, from this new president's position on a country with which, by all accounts, he has had, shall we say, a cordial and mutually beneficial relationship over the years, is LibertyNation.com managing editor and international writer, Mark Angelides. Mark, welcome back to Liberty Nation Radio.
Thanks for having me on, Tim.
Always a pleasure. So, Mark, we know that Joe Biden rambles, that he says almost inexplicable things, often about black people, and doesn't answer questions. And he was true to form in the CNN town hall. He did all of that. But what, if anything, of value did we learn from his statement about China and any of his other remarks?
With President Biden, it's often quite difficult to discern any meaning, especially when much of what we hear comes from the pro-Democrat rapid response team, otherwise known as the American media. But if you listen directly to his words regarding China, he's not going to be putting pressure on Xi Jinping. As he said at the Milwaukee CNN town hall, questions of the crackdowns on Hong Kong democracy activists, the denial of Taiwan's right to be self-governing, and perhaps most shockingly, the treatment of the Muslim Uyghurs in the Xinjiang province. Now, all these, they're off the table, according to his own words. He cast them aside as, and I quote, cultural norms. So I think we know who's going to be eating whose lunch in this special relationship. But yeah, we really didn't learn a great deal that we couldn't already suspect.
Indeed, it sure seems as if his response about China was about as predictable as you can get. He will certainly separate himself from Trump just because he was Trump, even if his policies were working towards China. So, Mark, you write about how one of CNN's headlines on this event, this town hall, proclaimed, quote, Joe Biden brings compassion, centrism, and a big-time vaccine promise at CNN town hall. I mean, could even the Biden campaign team come up with a more poll-tested slogan?
It's a good one, isn't it? It's a great slate. You can imagine that on the campaign ads. This message is endorsed by Joe Biden.
The only thing they left out was Joe Biden builds back better. They forgot that one.
Yeah, that's copyright owned by the World Trade Organization, I believe.
Thanks for explaining.
So I thought that was a fascinating headline for them to run with, but most strangely was that when you consider this was a major win for CNN here. They ran the first ever President Biden town hall. Maybe the last after this one, but and on the very next morning on their front page, it's tumbleweeds blowing across the Arizona desert. There was almost nothing. Same goes for almost all the major American news sites. They just didn't put any coverage into it. It's almost as if they wish it didn't happen. So they buried a couple of puff pieces below the fold and are hoping everybody forgets. But obviously, when people are searching for these things, what they want to come up at the top of the search engine is Joe Biden brings compassion. It was a little bit different on social media with the left-leaning journalists who decided to weigh in on the event. And they were explaining what Joe Biden actually meant, which is a wonderful service of them to offer to the American people, rather than covering what he said and then turning around and asking him to explain himself.
Now, Mark, it was clear from the get-go that Joe Biden was inheriting a gift of incalculable value from former President Trump, not one, but two vaccines, and the promise of more after a full-court press known as Operation Warp Speed. 2 million a day now being vaccinated, and a new explosion of vaccine being distributed next month in March. It's got to be one of the easiest things we've ever witnessed to exploit for political purposes, even though it has virtually nothing to do with anything that Joe Biden himself or his administration did. To what extent has Biden and his administration been able to exploit the vaccines for their own political benefit?
It was a fumble for the Biden, for Team Biden. He started off with a less than exciting plan of vaccinating 100 million people in 100 days, which sounds great. I mean, it's 100 million and 100. You know, that it joins together. It's a good gimmick, but when you realize that under President Trump, they were already doing 1 million shots per day. So if they're already at that point, all they've got to do is wait 100 days. So essentially, Biden's plan was, let's not touch anything. Let's leave it alone in the hopes we don't screw it up. Right. And then, of course, you've got the messaging that should have been, as you say, it should have been a real home run for them. It should have been a gift. But they messed that up too. You've had Kamala Harris and Biden administration officials saying there was no plan in place. We had no vaccine. Well, that's not true. I mean, Joe Biden had already received both doses of his vaccine before Inauguration Day, so he got that from somewhere. I believe there were already 50 million doses delivered or sent out before Inauguration Day. And the plan was already there. Dr. Fauci said there's a plan already in place. We've already got a plan. I think it was Axios actually deleted one of their tweets explaining that there was already a plan in place. So it was a gift, and they squandered it.
Now, Mark, one of the things we do at LibertyNation.com is to try to come up with catchy headlines that will attract the attention of our readers, like any other online operation. But the headline on one of your recent articles was particularly eye-catching. It was as follows: 2022 Pandora's box has been opened. So you're referring to next year's elections, but what Pandora's box is it that's been unsealed?
Well, that would be the possibility of impeachment for partisan political gain, or using the levers of power for political gain. So the House, it has the right to impeach, and the Senate has the right to try a case. A lot of people don't fully understand that the standards for a congressional trial, it's not the same standards as for a criminal one. So, for example, the impeachment trial of Donald Trump that we've just had would have been laughed out of court because obviously you had people on the House impeachment managers falsifying evidence, getting fact-checked in real time by the people that they're quoting for evidence. So really, going forward into 2022, if the majority of the House says that someone did something wrong, that's impeachment. As long as they've got the votes for it, that's impeachment. It can be anything. That's really the Pandora's box analogy. Everything has come out now, and all that's left is hope. And that's hope that perhaps politics can be better than it is right now.
Another piece of yours with an intriguing headline that you wrote for Valentine's Day: the unrequited love of politics. Is it time to bid farewell to your love of politics? You think, Mark, a lot of people disgusted by this last election will do just that, say goodbye, if not to politics, then the love of politics, sort of like not giving up money, but the love of money?
I think that's a pretty good analogy, Tim. Yeah, not giving up on money, but the love of money. Yeah, politics, she's an angry mistress, that one. She's exciting, but she treats you very poorly. I think that for now, a lot of people, they've lost their immediate obsession with politics. You and I, first thing we do in the morning is put the kettle on for a coffee and then hit the news sites. But I think a lot of people, they want to take a break now. I mean, they'll come back. It's like a sport that has no specific season or a long-running TV show. You can kind of tune out for a while, but if the entertainment factor is high enough, you're coming back to it. I mean, it's often exciting. It's the greatest show on earth. So people will return despite their heartbreak that they have now.
Hi, I'm Lisa K. Donner, along with Mark Angelides, Sarah Cowgill, Tim Donner, and Scott Cosenza, and this is Liberty Nation.
Now let's take a look at the LibertyNation.com electoral leaderboard. It's still 238 for Joe Biden.
What if stories and legends can offer us the key to unraveling the hottest political issues of the day and apply their lessons to understanding the chaos of modern politics?
Impeach 45!
Only where freedom of speech is honored can people who look, sound, or think differently be truly free.
If you're discussing something that's difficult, the probability that you're not going to offend each other is zero.
President-elect of the United States of America, Donald Trump.
Donald J. Trump is now president.
With one click, Liberty Nation delivers tomorrow's news.
And remember, liberty.
Today.
All the time and everywhere.
LibertyNation.com